Thank you everyone for attending today's presentation. Today we're going to be talking about Sage Intacct for construction. Before I dive into the presentation, I do want to just kind of give a quick overview of some of the topics we're going to be talking about today. So in today's discussion, I really want to focus on some of the basic workflows. So when we open up Sage Intacct, what are we going to see? How are we going to navigate throughout the system? And some of those options available to all the users. From there, I do want to kind of take a deeper dive into our dashboards or even some of the reporting capabilities. And with these dashboards, I want to really stress at it, these are going to be personalized to either you, the user, or even a specific role if you want. And again, we'll touch more about some of the capabilities that we can view in those. From there, just jumping really quickly into how we're going to create a project. How are we going to view some of those active projects that we currently have out there? The different statuses associated with those, or even the different individuals related to a project and where the estimation data is held. At the end of all of that, I do want to really briefly touch on the reporting capabilities within Intacct. I'm going to show you a couple out-of-the-box reports. Just note that there's a lot of customization or ability to customize any of those reports that you see. So if you're looking for something specific, chances are we're going to be able to report off of that. So when I open up the solution, I'm going to first start off with this home page, kind of going back to that basic workflow I mentioned. In this home page, Intacct is a browser or a cloud-based system. What that means is anywhere we essentially get access to this internet or have the ability to log into a URL, we're going to be able to access the Intacct platform and then be able to do a lot of those workflows. So for instance, if you're in the office, if you're working at home, if you're on the site, or if you're traveling and you're 30,000 feet above sea level in a plane, you're all able to see all this information just as long as you have that internet access, So starting off and scrolling down from there, first thing that might catch your eye is this release. So Sage Intacct has a cadence that they release one major update every quarter, and it's typically the second month and the second week of that quarter that they're going to release it. But every time that they release it, they'll let you know, here's some summaries of what happened. And even here, we're able to drill into not only updates that just occurred, but even previous updates, as well as they're going to provide you a lot of different ways to access material, including something like a video. So for instance, if you're driving home and you want to listen to the video of some of the updates that come out, or if you're doing something like I might be multitasking on creating a report or entering a purchase order, and we want to listen to this while we're doing that, again, just another way that we can digest a lot of that information. With the fact of these updates, so not only that all the information is available to you, they're released on a quarterly cadence, but within this being cloud-based, this will actually do the updates automatically for you. So essentially, we're eliminating that need to call the IT professional, include them in, schedule a time that's going to work for you to go and update all of your instances of the existing platform you might be on. That essentially goes away. So essentially, we log out on Friday, log in on Monday, and we're able to have that update in that instance while we're out on the weekend. All right. Scrolling down to the membership, something I really want to highlight here is Sage Intacct does a phenomenal job with not only providing you what's happening, but also what has happened and supporting documents to the users. Examples of these supporting documents could be the video library, release notes, even if you need to talk to the support, all those commands are right here at your home page. This is great for those users who might be new to Intacct, either if you're implementing Intacct now, or even if you have a new user that jumps on after the implementation process, you're able to get that whole library, have them be able to get a good understanding of what Intacct can really provide you guys. Another area to have that same option would be over in this help and support. And the neat thing here, again, works very similar as any help option. We can go in there and it's going to tell us about the feature. But the thing that I found kind of cool in this solution is if we're on a specific page, such as the projects page, or we're on the general ledger module, or anything, wherever we are, if we select help on this page, the solution is going to take you directly to that topic. So again, we're trying to eliminate some unnecessary clicks that you might get in a standard kind of workflow such as that. Moving from left to right, I'm going to jump over the little message center and talk about each of these users. So when we log into it, each user is going to be able to have their own login, as well as they're going to have their own preferences to really morph this solution or really tailor it around how they might need to see the information or how they work, right? So there's a lot of capability in terms of preferences that we can certainly explore. But what I want to go over is into some basic navigation. So as I go down to the application menu right here, you're going to see all the modules that are currently in the system. Because I'm currently logged in as an admin, this is going to show me every module that I currently have access into. If you were a project manager, what we could do is just limit the information or even the modules that they see. So for instance, if you wanted them to be able to view certain transactions, but they can't edit anything, you could absolutely do that. If you just do not want to have them have access into, say, the general ledger module, well, we can absolutely do that too. That goes back to having those preference capabilities on those individual users. But when we have this applications menu, just in the interest of time, a lot of these menus can be changed and tweaked. But if you scroll over onto this little star, this is some of the favorites that I've gone through and selected. Favorites are just a great way to really help personalize those views. So within those modules, if there's a specific section you need to see or go to, we're able to click one button, go directly to that, and then and go from there. All right. Scrolling all the way over to the right, you're going to see this little bookmarks here. Bookmarks are a fantastic resource to be able to quickly dive back to where you might have left off. Again, for instance, if I'm typing in on a purchase order, I'm working a purchase order, I got to get pulled off for lunch or help out an individual, whatever the case might be. I can bookmark a quick page and then go directly back to that individual transaction without having to go to, say, the module, the section, searching for that transaction you might have been creating. All right. Last thing I always like to highlight on the home screen is the Intacct collaboration. This is a fantastic resource, especially with people having the ability to work wherever they are, to communicate all in one silo. So for instance, as you see here, I'd messaged Michael about a purchase order that I needed approved ahead of time. And I'm able to type out, Michael, I need help on this purchase order. And when we open up that purchase order, you see all the details, but scrolling down, you're going to see here is that Intacct Collaborate. At Michael, I need this help. And then he'll receive a message. He could also receive an email notification and then be able to log into the Intacct environment and then go ahead and approve that action. All right. So it's a great resource to really hone in any communication that you're going to have in the company. You're really eliminating the need of using Teams for something or Slack for another thing or email for the other thing to all of a central one solution system. All right. So when we scroll back into the home page, again, we just kind of covered some of the fundamental skills around the Intacct solution. I really want to take it to the next step and go into our dashboards. So there's a lot of different dashboards you're going to have in the system. Dashboards can be created by individuals. You can limit the ability that people might have to be able to view specific dashboards. But look at these as a great way to kind of personalize or create a view that is all the information you need to see day in and day out, but in a more organized view. These components are really made up of actually 3 different sections. So at the top, you're going to see we have what we call our performance cards. Just think of these as quick information at a glance. How are we doing? How many jobs are we sitting at? But any quick information you might want to see. Underneath that, you're going to see a chart. Those are pretty standard. They give you a little bit more detailed view to come up with some of that information in an organized fashion. Like we see with this estimate versus actual, I'm able to go into it and see how much we've estimated the job versus how much it's actually costing us. The last section would be the reports. Reports can be very extensive if you need to, or robust, but essentially anything that we want to in a very detailed, organized, or very detailed view, I'm able to then include this onto a dashboard or add that report into this dashboard view. So when we're seeing this overview section, you can see I'm getting a breakout of all of our projects, where they currently are, as well as what our contracted amount was, what we're estimated to gross profit on that. And then over here, we can start to see, are we overbilled? Are we underbilled? Are we making the right decisions? How much have we billed thus far? A lot of those questions can come up, and you're going to obviously be able to have a lot of that information at your fingertips. But with those questions that do come up of where are these numbers coming from? How did I get this? How did we bill this much on this certain job? What that is essentially what Intacct is called the drill down capability. And what we're able to do is, if I go back up into this estimate versus actual, specifically this Houston warehouse, and I want to say, where did I get this $821,000 actual cost from? What does that make up of? Well, I'm able to drill into that data to be able to find out what the result is. So in this case, you can see here is the entire breakout, where our labor cost is, what our subcontract cost is, the material, and any other cost. Because that icon or those symbols are all blue, that's notifying and symbolizing to me that I'm able to drill into that to get more detail. So into here on our subcontract cost, if I expand this out real quick, I'm able to see all the vendor invoices that we have on that particular one. And then if I wanted to take it that next step further, I'm even able to drill down more and more. So really what we're allowing us to do, allowing you, the user, to do is drill down till you find that source transaction data, that data you might be looking for to answer whatever the question is that is at hand, okay? Before I show you a couple other examples of reports, I do want to talk about what we call some of the filtering capabilities within Intacct. So you might have seen in the presentation earlier that it switched to a different kind of entity briefly. And what I did is at the top level, this report is summarizing all of the entities underneath it to give us a consolidated view of how we're doing across every company. If I wanted to break it down and figure out how one entity might be doing versus another, well, I'm able to just click the top down, drill into that particular entity. So in this case, I'm going to my general contractor. And as you see, the data or the format will look the same, but the data populating it is going to be tweaked a little bit differently. So in this case, I no longer have 20 jobs, I have 11 jobs. And as you can see here, I'll just toggle back and forth. So it allows you to really slice and dice how we're viewing this particular data set. From that point of that filtering, you're even allowed to go a little bit more through the power of what we call dimensions. And just think of dimensions as essentially a way to tag or classify different transactions or different parts of the system in a meaningful way to you that we can then report off of. So for example, is if I had multiple locations, so we're under the general contractors, but I want to see how the performance of the Dallas office is doing versus the Houston. Well, I'm able to break that down through those dimensions. And an example or a couple examples of the dimension capabilities is right here on the setup. So you're allowed about 13 out of the box, and that's what we're going to see on screen. These ones can be changed to your preferences, as well as you can add more if you need to. All right, you don't have to use all of them, but they are there for you. So really allow us to tag different parts of the system if I wanted to see where vendors are coming from, what vendors are assigned to it, how performance of a specific site is doing, how a specific project manager might be doing versus other project managers. These are all just a couple examples of those dimension capabilities that we can utilize. All right. So taking a step back into the dashboard, I do want to toggle over to kind of CFO's view of what we might be able to see. Again, just keep in mind, you are absolutely able to navigate to move these different pieces and tiles around to best fit your need, or even if you wanted to, add in different reports, and we can talk more about that in a later presentation. But what we see on here is essentially what a CFO might be viewing. So we have our overall revenue, what we've done year to date versus prior years, any operation costs, as well as you scroll down, you can see I can set up these tiles to not only be dashboard or performance cards, charts, or reports, but I could even set this up as being my workflow. So if I wanted to go into budgets or journal entry reports or even a bank transaction to see the live feed of where we sit, I'm able to, at a click, go into that specific module all from one dashboard. You're even able to view any assignments. If I had said, in this case, I messaged S. Hanley to go ahead and approve all of the POs by the end of the week, then I can indicate that and be able to track the progress on that specific task at hand. But going over to some of the reports as well, you're going to see a P&L report. You can have different variations of that P&L, whether it's a detailed view to see where the revenue is coming in just as a whole, or by each of the locations, whether those are those different divisions, how the performance are doing, or anything along the lines of that. So there's a lot of capability in terms of these different dashboards to make them personal to you. And a question that does come up is, these dashboards, can we limit who's able to view that? Simple answer is absolutely. And a project manager is not going to, we don't want them to be able to see that CFO or the executive's dashboard. That's only going to pertain to that individual. So we can just filter that as an option and say, only this person has the rights to be able to view that, and that's not even going to appear on anyone else's menu. So from our dashboard, again, that was just kind of a quick overview on the capabilities within dashboards, some of the insights to some of the reporting capability. What I really want to do now is actually go into the projects and how we created some of those projects. So opening up the projects option or the projects menu, it's going to be opened by what we see on screen. I can see all of our active projects here. I'm able to filter this list out in meaningful ways to you. So whether that is by the type, if I want to see hotel, warehouse, or anything like that, I'm able to filter out that information. In projects, you're also allowed to create custom views. And what I mean by that is if you see this All tab, I can just go ahead and hit Jobs, which I've ahead of time created to show me all of my warehouse projects by my project type and view that. So I'm able to see a lot of this data. There is a lot of abilities to add in data fields to these particular projects or to this screen that you want to see. And then this screen is even able to go onto a dashboard if you wanted to see where you currently sit, what projects are, or even directly click to that project. Again, happy to touch base on that in a future presentation. But for today, I'm going to actually go back to all of our projects, and I want to focus on one particularly, which is our Sam Jackson Hall. As we open up that Sam Jackson Hall, this is what our project page will look like. So when we go through the process of adding a new job to our repertoire, I'm able to even just come into here and capture that basic information, such as our project type. Is it commercial? You'll notice a lot of these too. You might have seen these in the dimension field, and this is some of the options where we can slice and dice that information out by those different dimension types. For instance, if I want to see it by project manager, I could view that. You could even have some reports on specific content. I can build in logic within Intacct to even say, hey, if a job is awarded, I want you to email the project manager that's awarded because he's associated to this estimated job right now. A lot of logic you can actually build in those similar to essentially just any emails if you need to. So scrolling over into the project detail, and before I get into the estimate, just one field I really want to highlight is over here. You're going to see this project number and this permit. Now, why I highlight these are two custom fields that I've created in the system. You, the user, can absolutely include these fields. So just know, oftentimes, if you're capturing some specific data that you might not see out of the box, it by no means is a heavy lift. It is very easy to include specific fields. And then you also have the additional benefit of being able to report off of those specific custom fields that you might have created. So just to keep in the back of your mind while we're going through the solution. Now, when I'm going into the estimate tab, I'm just going to touch base on this. Estimates can absolutely be imported. There are a few estimating solutions out there in the marketplace that Intacct does work with and does integrate with. But if the ones that we don't integrate, oftentimes they'll be able to put the data into a CSV format that Intacct will be able to receive. And then when that comes into Intacct, into the projects, it will look like what we see here on this line, the Sam Jackson Hall primary project line, which is summarizing the data. If I wanted to see the individual line items of what it's made up of, I'm able to expand that estimate out, and then you're able to see that I have the labor, how much labor we anticipate, any subcontract costs, the materials, all of this valuable data is in there. But again, we want to give it to you where it's at a glance, you can see what you need to, and if you need to drill into more detail or find that, it's a click away. You're able to find that information very quickly. All right. Forecasting as well, able to capture a lot of not only the estimate, but if we're capturing a forecasted estimate of what we anticipate we're going to make on the project, all of that data would reside under this estimate. And then when we schedule over to this cost code structure, you can start to see we're building out something similar to kind of a schedule of values, which is where we're going to start to pull from when we go into the contracts page. Again, today's presentation, we're not going to touch base on contracts. We can absolutely have a one-off meeting and dive into that in more detail. But I really just want to illustrate some of the points within a project that we can get data to flow into. Now, also going over in our project summary, this is going to give that project manager a quick glance view, how the overall performance of this is doing. Again, I could build a report in any specific way that we need to see that, and even include this to the dashboard so they don't need to drill all the way into these. But that data, if you need to find it, is all being captured in the back end where we see on screen right here. And something else to make note is down below, we saw me include that Intacct collaboration feature. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a post or a specific communication to an individual. As you see here, I've included a job site photo that I am able to upload into the Intacct platform, and then any user who might be following this environment would be able to then see, address, look at, do whatever that they need to, or even communicate to this by adding a comment or even approving that they see that. All right. So last thing I really want to touch base in today's presentation is just going into the reports module. And there's a few different reports that are out of the box reports, and I just want to touch base kind of on those. So Intacct, as I mentioned, does provide some out of the box reports. A lot of our users find that these reports are a great starting point, if you will, to make this data in whatever format that you need to see. So they'll log into here, they might copy a report over and edit it, but if you go up to the quick library, you can see that there is a lot more different reports also available in this option as an option. So from here, here's that WIP report that I'm going to run. And as we see here, I have a list of all of our breakdown of all the jobs that are under this one entity. when we have these reports, I did also mention that these reports can be added to any dashboard to make this a personalized view to the user who's leveraging that dashboard. And really what I mean by that is you simply just go into Add Dashboard. It's going to pull up this menu where I'm just expanded to make it a little easier to view. And I'm going to select which of the dashboards that I want to pull in. So if I want to include it in the Project Manager view, I can say in the Project Manager view, just going to put a quick name to it, call it a WIP. So when we add this to a dashboard, what I'll then be able to see is if we go back to those dashboards, back to that Project Manager view, you're able to see on this particular format, that when we scroll all the way down, you can see that now I've included that WIP report all that just shows us all of those projects. So very easy to add in or customize that data that we're going to see on these dashboards really in a meaningful way. And then if you need to email this out, create a PDF, you can absolutely do that on a regular basis, or even just be able to send this link to an individual or users so they could also view this. And with that being said, I do want to just thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your local Aktion representative